This is CNN, home of fake news.
When people were asked what their top economic concerns are, take a look. Inflation, the top spot there with 39%. It was followed by wages, labor shortages, unemployment there at the bottom. Does President Biden deserve the blame for this, Catherine? Should his approval rating be tied to this? Are these things under his control?
Inflation is up. Not because of any particular thing that the president did. It's because there are all of these supply chain disruptions throughout the world caused by the pandemic. Demand is up. That is partly driven by some fiscal policy decisions that Congress and this president and the previous president made, giving people more stimulus checks and things like that.
This motherfucker's a retard.
But it's also that people had a lot of savings from last year. They have money in the bank. That money is, burning a hole in their pocket, so to speak. They want to spend it, and they're trying to buy more stuff even than they were pre-pandemic. They're shifting more of their spending to goods. At the same time that goods are difficult to get through the supply chain, all of that is driving inflation up, and that's happening worldwide to some extent. It's not Biden's fault. It's not Biden's fault.
It's not Biden's fault.
He's made it very clear that they want to raise taxes, want to re-regulate the country, basically to roll things back to the Obama years. You remember how bright and wonderful those were, right?
Biden has relatively little that he can do about it. I think he could be doing more on expediting work permits for legal immigrants. Expediting work permits for legal immigrants, things like that, which the administration has not done. But even all of those things put together probably won't make a huge dent.
Americans have lost their confidence in President Biden and their optimism for the country. Just 22% of adults say we're headed in the right direction. A shocking 71% say we're on the wrong track. And that includes a near majority of Democrats who are saying
he can barely string together two sentences reading it off a teleprompter. I mean, my God, the other day read it and they had in there in the instructions, end quote, and he read the instructions.
Because of the actions we've taken, things have begun to change. End of quote.
Where do you think the Biden presidency is now?
Well, not in good shape. Joe Biden doesn't have enough juice, not with Republicans. He doesn't have enough juice with his own party.
Somebody at the White House has been smoking the devil's lettuce.
I mean, they're in complete disarray, let's be honest.
But we're seeing the ramifications of this. Already 5% inflation. And the inflation this year, I think, is from last year's borrowing. We're borrowing even more this year, so I suspect inflation gets worse.
Trying to spend our way out of inflation is like trying to put a fire out with lighter fluid. It is absolutely delusional.
But this all goes back to the Democrats' failed economic policies.
Yeah. So, look, they don't want him to answer questions because they know he can't handle it.
The White House now is working overtime to, again, try to say that if they can enact the Build Back Better plan that could create millions of jobs, that would help. But there are a lot of concerns, and it's not just from Republican critics, but from some Democrats as well who are seeing this and are a little worried about what's to come.
Zero. The cost of the Build Back Better bill in terms of adding to the deficit is zero. Best of all, the cost of these bills in terms of adding to the deficit is zero. Zero.
They have promised that this will cost the American taxpayer zero, that they will, whatever they spend, they will get back in revenue raisers.
Right. Well, of course, those were all tax increases.
When President Biden says this will cost zero, that is a fact check false. What President Biden is doing is to build back to the 1970s. Think about it. Inflation, high energy prices, empty shelves.
If you've been to the store lately, you may have been met with scenes like this.
Grocery prices, they're causing hardship. Look at that. Gas prices, 67% say increases are causing hardship. Even 53% on housing costs.
Will we see these numbers worsen if, in fact, this reconciliation plan goes through?
I think we absolutely will. The effect was pretty immediate when the $1.9 trillion package came through in March. What we've seen is month over month an increase in inflation here in America. It's the most pernicious tax of all.
Products are not just harder to get, but more expensive.
Americans are paying more for everything, from diapers to new cars, and it could get even worse as the holidays approach.
And it's all because of Joe Biden's policies.
It's not Biden's fault.
You have labor shortages. Now you have inflation. This is a really bad sign of things to come.
They have gone crazy. It's more than a Trump derangement syndrome. The left has gone absolutely apoplectic, and their behavior is irrational by any standards, and their behavior is also extraordinarily deplorable.
Joe Biden is overseeing the destruction of our country. He has overperformed in only one thing, which is I thought it would take him much longer to destroy America. He's managed to do it in 10 months, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, which is a record. That is pretty, that's just one skill, failing.
This is a hugely unpopular president. And when Joe Biden was campaigning for office, he pledged to restore America's standing in the world.
The United States is back.
His argument was that the Trump presidency had undermined America's image, that the Trump administration had fundamentally sought to change the nature of the United States as a free society. This is an administration in power right now, the Biden administration, that is actively, fundamentally undermining the rule of law. It has been a huge embarrassment on the international stage, as we saw with the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. This is a president who has attacked court decisions, whose supporters are talking about packing the Supreme Court. This is an administration that really has very little respect, actually, for the rule of law. And many of its supporters as well have launched ferocious attacks upon the founding fathers of the United States. We're seeing that in New York this week, where City Hall has taken down a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And so the far left really has gained a great deal of power in the United States with regard to the Biden presidency. Joe Biden's actions as president are far, far more damaging than anything Donald Trump tweeted. This is a presidency that has fundamentally divided the United States. And the American people are increasingly rejecting this socialist-style ideology, as we saw in Virginia with the huge victory for the Republican candidate in the governor race. This sent a very clear message to the White House that the American people are not willing to go down the path of far-left socialism that so many of Biden's supporters believe in.
I am your voice.